Hi, everybody. I'm Brett Ullman, and welcome to Parenting Navigating Everything. This is the channel where we equip and empower parents to navigate all aspects of parenting. One question I hear a lot from parents is the question of how do I have better communication in my home? And today we answer one part of that question on communication. I think every family should have an annual general family meeting. Let me explain. It was a number of years ago, I had a chance to do a program called the Arrow Leadership Program. At that time, the director was a guy named Carson Pugh, and in one of his teaching sessions, Carson challenged us to all have this AGFM, an annual general family meeting. I remember sitting in class thinking, what a weird idea this was to have a business meeting with my family. He talked about how his sons felt that they had a say in what went on within their family because of these meetings. I came home from this Arrow program and that year decided to have our first Ullman family meeting. My wife and I put an agenda on the fridge and asked our kids, Zoe at that time was 7 and Ben was 6, we asked them to write down anything that they wanted to talk about in our family meeting. We got to the day of the meeting and the agenda was absolutely blank. We had our meeting and talked about different things, but the kids were really not into it. Again, they were 7 and 6. At the end of the meeting, we told the kids that to celebrate, we would go to any restaurant that they wanted to go to. Can you guess where we went? After a quick debate, we ended up going to McDonald's. And after a really bad dinner, I remember saying to my wife, Dawn, that this is kind of it. We'll be done with this. And she said, let's try it one more time. So the next year, in the last week of August, which is when we did it that year, to kind of just before the school year, we put the agenda on the fridge and we arrived at the day of our family meeting. And this time the agenda was filled. Item number 1 was they wanted a baby brother or sister. And number 2 was they wanted a new dog. And the list was filled with other things that they wanted and conversations they wanted to have. Now, I realized that we were now talking about real issues. That year when we asked them where we wanted to go for dinner, it was actually quite different. My daughter actually said the Keg. And I kind of remember saying to her, you've never actually been to the Keg. But one of the TV shows she watched had Keg commercials. And if you don't know the Keg, it's a large steakhouse. But the commercials were for the Keg. Now, for me, things were looking up. But every year since, we have done a family meeting every August and then gone out to the Keg for dinner. Every year, our meetings can be in August. We've had some that are a little late because kids are at camp or different things. But every year we sit down for one moment and walk through all aspects of what it means to be a family member in our family, the Ullman family. So what does a family meeting look like, you must ask? Well, it's quite simple. It's just a time to talk about anything that people want to talk about. So here is how my family meeting is run, and you can run yours very different. My wife and I kind of create an agenda of things that we want to talk about. On the fridge, we put now, when I say an agenda, write the word agenda and tack it onto your fridge. It's nothing really hard to create. But my wife and I put down the things that we want to talk about. Here are some of the things we talk about every year. Things like vacations. It's a great place to start. Are we going to have one? Where are we going to go? If we are having one, we have to be careful with our money throughout the year. I'll never forget with vacations. It was about 3 or 4 years ago, and my family, we were all voting. My wife and my daughter and my son all voted to go to Mexico. Now, it was the year when there were a lot of issues in Mexico, and the cartels had bombed some government building, and as a dad, I was kind of scared, so I voted anywhere in the world but Mexico. A few months later, we land in Mexico, and my son looks over and kind of said, like, Mexico. And I remember kind of feeling proud that he knew he had a bit of a say in a vote in this conversation. Activities. We talk about what are the kids going to take part in that year. This is kind of extracurricular activities. Over the years, my daughter has done dance and swimming. My son has done baseball and other things like that. Both my kids want to ski and snowboard as well. So we talk about all those different activities, when we're going to do them, and even how much it will cost. For things like skiing, every year my kids get bigger. Do we need new skis or new snowboard boots or new equipment? Every year we talk about school. We talk about how the school year is going to look. Both of my kids talk about how they want to do well in report cards. So we then kind of come back at them and ask, well, how might you actually do that? We talk about where you should do homework. Should you have your phones out? Should there be noise? We kind of talk about all the conversations with that, looking towards success. We talk about chores. We look at how we need help around the house, and we have lists of certain things that the kids are responsible for: cleaning their own rooms, clearing dishes off the table, emptying the dishwasher, walking the dog, etc. We talk about meals, how both my kids are going to start cooking, we hope, one meal a week with either my wife or me. We also look at foods, as a parent, what kind of foods do our kids want so that they can create their own lunches, which they do, and then take them to school. For us, we also have a conversation on faith. For us, we are a quote-unquote Christian family, and we want to actually follow, what the Bible says with this. So we talk about we're going to go to church and what services we're going to go to, and we talk about how, we're going to read our Bibles, and do my kids need a new Bible, and other conversations like that. We always address camp. Camp has been a big part of our lives for my wife and me, and for my kids' lives since they were about 8. So my kids go to camp each year. We talk about, when they're going to go, what they're going to do, are they going to do wakeboarding or not? And even this summer coming up, my daughter will be doing a 6-week LIT leadership program at a camp called Camp Minneowi, and we're really excited about that. But all these things have to be addressed, especially when they cost money. We talk about birthday parties. Are we still having birthday parties? Have you outgrown birthday parties? How much how much do we spend on birthday parties? Are we still having parties where we bring in a critter lady who has different animals? Are we going out to a place with trampolines, or what are we doing? We also kind of question now, do they want a present or an experience? We can give a present to our kids, or we can go take them and do something kind of as an experience. We talk about Halloween. Are the kids going out? And we're kind of at the age where they've stopped that. But if they were going out, we talked about what costumes do they want. We also usually talk a bit about a spending freeze. Summers, you spend a bit more money. And so sometimes after our family meeting, after going to the keg for dinner, we talk about doing a spending freeze, eating out our freezers and food that's just around the house and maybe not going out for dinner. We also talk about any purchases we might need to do as a family: new bikes, new clothes, new shoes, new whatever. The goal is that my kids feel that they have a voice and a say in our family. I love this conversation. One of the hardest ones we ever did was the conversation on getting a dog. For many years, my son Ben said he wanted a dog, and my wife and my daughter and myself all said we also want a dog, but we're not willing to give up everything for it. As we all know, a dog costs money, and we really wanted to get an English bulldog, which cost a little more money. So year after year, we talked about getting a dog, but we really couldn't do it. And then one year, my son actually said that he would give up his vacation to get a dog. And it began a really interesting conversation, not only in our family meetings, but even between my wife and I, the idea of, are we going to give our kids in their childhood the experience of having a dog? And so we did. We went and got an English bulldog, Bailey, and one day I will bring her on video and show you, but she has been a fantastic thing for our family. It's got us outside walking and doing different things. There's also the time at the end of every meeting where it's just anything else. Is there any comments? Is there any thoughts, any questions you want to talk about? And every year as my kids get older, these things get more unique. Even now we're talking about, universities and where they might go for school. Will they go away, or will they stay home, and how much money will it cost? Being honest, before we started our family meetings, I thought it was a really dumb idea, but I was completely wrong. It has ended up being a foundational and profound thing that we do each year as a family. It allows all our expectations to kind of be put on paper and explained as a family. It allows us to be a family as well, not a bunch of disjointed members, but kind of one thing together. It also helps us to look strategically and intentionally at who we are and who we're going to actually try and be. My challenge to you is a simple one. Have your own family meeting. It doesn't matter how old you or your kids are, it's never too late to start. Now, as one side note before I finish, all families are different. You might be a family that's lost a spouse due to a death. You might be divorced or separated. You can still have a family meeting. It just might be you and your kid. Some of you might not even have kids, and maybe a family meeting is just with you or your spouse. Some of you might be single, and this might actually be weird, but maybe once a year you take an evening or a day and just sit down and strategically look at the year coming up and how you want to live it. Love to hear how your family meetings go. See you soon.